Hey guys, welcome to my latest video. So this is my third video and this one's going to be on Dune. So not the new movie, which is currently out in theaters right now. So you might be wondering, with Dune 2 out, is it worth seeing the first one if you haven't seen it already? And is it worth going through the book? And if you have seen it, the first one, is it worth revisiting again? So the first Dune movie was a huge critical hit, but it was a modest financial success. But fortunately, it was enough that a second movie was greenlit. So I'm currently listening to the audiobook of the first half of the book again, and I got about to the halfway point when I stopped because I wanted to read some other stuff actually on the Roman Empire. But so just a, a kind of a quick recap of what happened in the first half of the Dune book. So Duke Leto is forced to abandon his home planet of Caladan with his family and to leave for the desert planet of Arrakis. So this is pretty well-known stuff, but so I'm just going to give you a quick spoiler alert for the rest of this video for more of the details for the first Dune movie and for the first half of the book. So I enjoyed seeing it a second time recently. I saw it again with some friends, and I enjoyed it much more the second time, I think, than the first time. And there are a few differences between the book and the movie. So, I mean, the last two videos that I did were on Band of Brothers and Oppenheimer. And of course, there's going to be a difference between what you have on the page and what ends up on the big screen. So, some of those changes are good, some of those are maybe not so good, but I think more than anything else, Dune, the incredible thing about it is how Denis Villeneuve managed to interpret that onto the big screen and make it look good. So Dune is really, it's a bit of a kind of sci-fi fantasy. You almost have knights. I think everyone does fights with shields and knives, which is exactly from the book. And the characters are not exactly the way that I would have thought of them in the book while I was listening to it, because I listened to books rather than reading them. But I mean, it did a pretty good job, I think. And given that it was a huge critical success, one of the things that people were really happy about when it came to Dune was the way that it looked. And I've watched a few videos actually on how they did the special effects for that movie, and it was quite a big movie. I think it was over $150 million budget. So I would recommend that you go check out some videos on the effects, including how they managed to keep sort of the lighting correct, even though a lot of the movie was CGI. So they used, I think, rather than using green screen or blue screen like they used to back in the 90s, they actually used brown screen for the CGI. But I just wanted to go over some of the differences between the movie and the book. So the first thing that comes to mind is that something that was really missing from the book, but which you found in the movie, was the actual attack by House Harkonnen and the Sardaukar on House Atreides. So the actual battle itself is pretty much completely missing from the book. Whereas in the movie, what you see is, and it looks amazing. Denis Villeneuve, the director, has done a great job of showing the Harkonnen or the Sardaukar ships sort of, in some cases, floating above the House Atreides ships while they're still on the ground. And you see these tiny little missiles. And visually, it looks great. It's at night. You have these kind of gold, yellow, oranges that take up the entire screen. So if you were fortunate enough to see an IMAX, that would have looked great. But you see the missiles come out of those ships and then hit the House Atreides ships. In some cases, you see the shields on the House Atreides ships sort of glowing blue as they're getting hit by the missiles, and the shields eventually go down, of course, and then the House Atreides ships are destroyed. There was a really cool scene where Duncan Idaho, played by Jason Momoa, is in an ornithopter, escaping, trying to get away from the battle and you don't see too much of that. There's a bit where the sides of the Ornithopter to open up and they launch missiles and attack some of the Sardaukar and House Harkonnen troops before he manages to get away. But it looks great. And there was another scene where Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin, is running along with some of his fellow troops at night, and there's a point where there's an explosion behind them in the background, and there's a large flash of light, of course, because there's an explosion, and then you see the silhouettes of Gurney Halleck and the House Atreides troops, and that apparently was done with CGI, as in the explosion itself in the background was CGI, but the lighting was done with practical effects, with practical lighting, and it looks great. It looks really nice. So if you're looking for kind of a visual masterpiece of something that looks nice on a big screen, then definitely check out the Dune movie. Another one of the changes that I recall from the book is, and it's a small change, and actually I think that they could have used the exact same scene from the book, but the one from the movie actually works pretty well too. So at night before the attack begins, Duke Leto wakes up because he knows something is up, and he notices a body on the floor, and that turns out to be the Shadow Mapes, who's the servant lady who's a Fremen but is working in the Atreides household. And so the Duke knows that his life at this point is in danger, and what happens in the book is that the Duke goes to turn on his shield, knowing that he's in mortal danger right now, and then the dart hits him. The dart hits him before he can activate his shield, but that's not what happens in the movie. If you remember from the movie, what happens instead is that the Duke does activate his shield, but the dart hits him in the back, like he's and he can't reach round to get it, and until eventually it's kind of, you can see his shield glow blue, and then it gets through his shield eventually. So that was actually a nice little touch. I think either one worked, the book or the movie, but what they did in the movie worked too. So the movie keeps pretty close to the book, I would say. There's a few differences, of course. There's going to be some differences. So the character of Chani's changed a bit. She's towards more the end of the book. The end of the movie, the first movie that is, and she's a woman that Paul Atreides, the son of Duke, he sort of inherits her because he's killed Jarmis, the guy that he has a knife fight with, because Jarmis is intent on challenging the young Duke, now that his father is dead, to a knife fight. And so he sort of inherits his household, and I think even a child, if I remember correctly, and before going into the Fremen camps and living with them for a number of years with his mother, who is the Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson. So I haven't seen the second movie just yet. I've been meaning to see it with some friends, but we've not been able to get anything together just yet. But I'm looking forward to seeing that. I don't know that I'm going to be able to see it on IMAX unless I'm sort of sitting off to the side 2 rows from the front. But I'd really like to see it on a big screen like I did the first movie. So I've heard that at least one person say that the second movie is better, that it's got a lot more action, which kind of makes sense. So I'm looking forward to that. One more thing I wanted to mention, actually, a difference between the book and the movie, I've just thought of it right now, is when the Lady Jessica and Paul are in the tent, and Paul suddenly breathing in all of this spice, which is now in the air, which they portrayed really well in the movie, has a vision of the future. And his vision of the future in the book is that he sees the Emperor's ships with I think it was a House Atreides flag on top of the Emperor's ships. Essentially a premonition that he sees himself at the head of the empire, which is currently being run by the Emperor Padishah. So essentially, he would be the next Emperor Padishah, but of course, he would be the Mahdi and the Duke Leto at the same time. In the movie, they changed that to showing him in this sort of armor and doing all kinds of stuff in a desert battle with the Fremen, which looked really cool. That was a nice little touch. Um, a bit of a change there, but not necessarily a bad one. I think it might have been, they could have also kept the same thing from the book and that would have worked as well. So I'm going to leave it there. I've talked a little bit about Dune, the first movie, which covers essentially the first half of the first book. And I'll probably make a second video here about the second movie. And maybe I'll listen to the audio book as well, the rest of it anyway, to go over what the differences are. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and keep in touch for any more. They'll be coming out soon. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.